Can you retire on a pension pot of £200,000? Let's run the numbers. And I mean, I'm going to do a cash flow forecast. Last week, I did a video on £100,000 and people were saying, no, not realistic. Not everybody wants to live on £1,200 to £1,400 a month in retirement. Do something with a bit more money. So I'm just going to double it and we're going to run through it. And we're going to stress test it because that was a number one question I had as well. So today's scenario is a guy who's 64. I called them Phil Mitchell after EastEnders. We're going to see if he can afford to retire. You can see I've got to do a bunch of assumptions. So I've run the forecast to age 100. I've assumed CPI and inflation, or RPI, is at 3%. Typically, people do it at 2.5%, but it's not been like that for quite some time. So 3% is going to be nice and easy. As I said, he is 64. We've got a cash account of £5,000 in the current, and then we've got a pension pot of £200,000, and I've put a growth rate of 6%. Now, because inflation is at 3%, you've probably guessed it already, a real return of 3% year-on-year growth, just linear. And then we've got the state pension pot at age 67, so in 3 and a bit years. That's £241.30 a week, which is a pretty good pension pot. Now, expenses, where have I got this from? So we've got £2,725 a month, running from current age all the way to age 100. I've taken this directly from the retirement living standards. Now, I don't want to hear, this is not realistic, this is the retirement living standards. They've done a lot of analytics and work to get this as close as possible. Everyone is individual. That's the whole point of personal finance. It's personal. So I've used the moderate pot, divided it by 12, and I'm sure you've just worked out the maths there and where I got it from. These icons change as I click on what we're doing, so what we're looking at. So on house, we've got you're still doing a bit of DIY. On food, we've got that you can have some takeaways. Transport, you're probably driving a car if you can afford to spend $32,000 a year in retirement. Clothing, you're doing a little bit of shopping. And yes, you are buying someone gifts in retirement. Their website is pretty good. So when you click on the Discover More, it tells you a little bit extra here. And then as you scroll down, it tells you more about different types of things people buy and spend on and you'd expect to spend in retirement. I'm not going to go into the detail of that. Let's focus on the modeling. So right now, Phil's going to run out of money. So he's got 205,000. Remember, the 5,000 is the current account. By age, well, he's in retirement now. By age 71, he's run out of money. That's not ideal. The reason for that is because his expenses are 32,700, and he just tears through his pension pot. By the time he actually gets to state pension at 67, his pension pot is only about £115,000. And then it starts to get decimated year on year because he's still £20,000 roughly above that state pension. So let's play around with this. That's a moderate, keep in mind, a moderate expenditure for a single person. What happens if you went, actually, I'm probably only going to spend £2,000 a month, £500 a week in retirement? That's pretty good. That covers a lot of things. Well, now he gets to age 80. That's pretty good because if you've got a paid off property, but when you're in your 70s, you'll probably do equity release or something, maybe downsize if you've got a bigger property. But also, properties need maintenance. So we've got to think about what's going on there. It's likely you're not going to be able to fund your own retirement home. But getting to age 80 is still not right. So we're going to go again and we're going to lower it and say, hey, what about $1,800 a month? How do I fare now? And we're doing very cautious investment returns. So now we're at age 95, 96. That's pretty okay. I feel more comfortable with him spending around $1,800 a month. That for me is a pretty comfortable range. But here's where the stress testing gets into it. Let's run a market simulation. So you can see here, we've got all these different kind of market crashes. I'm actually going to focus on the big one, the big boom in 2007. And let's run that simulation. If we have unfortunate series of events and Phil decides to retire this year and the market crashes, his money, instead of lasting into his 80s, actually stops just before his mid-70s. For some people, they're going to be okay with that. And they'll say, hey, I'm actually just going to be a lot more frugal in the earlier years of retirement. The reality is, most people spend more in the first few years of retirement. But if there is a recession, I have no doubt that you're probably going to realize that you should spend significantly less. The thing I'd recommend you do, and a takeaway from this video, is go onto the government website for the pension tracing tool. It's a free tool from the government, and you can track down any old pension you had, even if it was like when you worked maybe 1 year at a McDonald's when you were a teenager decades ago. Have a little look, see if there is a pension available for you that you could add to your current pot. I'm going to remove the market simulations. So £1,800 a month, which is, pretty much a third down from the retirement living standards saying a moderate lifestyle. So I would say £200,000 pension pot, pretty okay to retire. But you really do have to be careful on your splurges, especially at the start of your retirement. That's it for this video. If you want me to do another number and throw a bit more chaos into it, I will happily do it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.